Hello and welcome to the Wad Fam Chalk Pod. I'm Dylan Weaver.
And I'm Andrew Sabo.
And we are here today to talk about episode 362, The Right Choice, Part 1.
There is not a single right choice made in this entire episode.
Except for the creation of this episode, which is great.
That's fair. Wait a minute.
We're going to flip the script here. Andrew's got problems and Dylan loves this episode.
This is... Okay. All right. Let's get into it. Let's get into it. I'm excited to break it down.
I'm so glad that we don't have a guest again. And I get to just
we get to really dig into it.
Yeah. I was going to say sideswipe you. That's not what I mean. Blindside.
No.
Blindside you.
Perfect. No, I love this little role reversal situation we got going on here.
No, it's real good. It's real good. This is an episode written and directed by Mr. Paul McCusker. It originally aired October 19th of 1996. And it's a good episode.
There is a multitude of opinions represented on this podcast.
We don't really have cast people. The guy who plays Brandon is only in this episode and the next one playing Brandon.
Okay.
And is only hasn't really done anything outside of that.
Interesting. Yeah. Boy, and it kind of tracks. I can't say that Brandon's performance is really memorable beyond the general yuckiness of it all. But don't worry, we'll get into it.
You know whose performance is wonderful, though?
Will Ryan?
Well, always.
Yeah.
But Steve Bridges as the clerk. Best performance of the episode. Wait. Well, I don't know if I want to take that away from Eugene, but it's such a good performance.
Oh my gosh, I did not make that connection. I recognized that the voice sounded familiar, but I never looked it up to check or anything. That is fantastic.
Yeah, I quite like it. It's a good one.
It is, and it's on the album Welcome Home.
Yeah, it's on Welcome Home. The other person, Lisa Harper, voices Janice, who's the roommate of Katrina's that she's talking to that Eugene's talking to on the phone. She has been in one episode and has never done anything else.
Incredible.
Love with her life. I mean, I assume she's just
been sitting in a basement for years.
Yep. That's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
But
if it doesn't have representation on the internet, there's no way it happened.
Right. That is what I've always said. If we don't post it, does it happen?
If you don't post, you're not real. I say that like it's a joke, but I know so many people who genuinely feel that way.
Wow. Well,
I think it's a generational thing that I pseudo missed because my parents were as conservative with social media as they were. So I was very much like looking at it with skeptical eye and not wanting to be super, super into it.
There you go.
Beyond the normal, just complete addiction and compulsion that social media brings.
Sure. And I will take it back. Lisa Harper, not no one.
Okay.
She was on staff at Focus on the Family, including she served 6 years as their women's ministry director.
Interesting.
And has written books and has a podcast and whatever. So they just pulled her in for an episode because that's usually what happens if I don't recognize someone on an episode of Adventures in Odyssey.
It was somebody from within Focus that they just yanked.
Yep. That tends to be pretty...
Free labor.
I mean...
It's not free because you're already paying them.
Yeah, well, yeah. And is that different from you and I inviting our friends on to be podcast guests?
When you put it like that, I'm going to shut my mouth.
And thus, it's just going to be me monologuing for the rest of the episode, guys.
Enjoy.
So Andrew's mouth is going to stay shut.
That's the complete role reversal.
Because if you have nothing nice to say...
Don't say it at all.
Yeah. If I learned anything from Odyssey. So yeah, there should be a promo for this episode. One does exist. However, there are currently issues with the AIO wiki. So
classic.
No promo.
Oh no.
But yeah. Anything else you feel like we got to say off the top? Because I think I'm ready to just get into it.
Yeah, I'm ready to be mad again.
All right. I do start out not mad, but sad.
Okay.
That this episode follows so directly from Search for Wit, because the way Search for Wit ends, I was really hoping we were going to get some like Wit and Eugene just like hanging out and talking in the Middle East.
No.
We do not get that. Nope. Because it's so funny that like last episode ends with like Jason parting ways with them, and this episode starts with them meeting up with Jason.
Yeah, and parting ways with Eugene.
Right. And so Jason is there at the airport talking with Wit, and Wit's coming into town for like a conference that the press, what is it? Universal Press Foundation is having. And
apparently there were a lot of problems with coming back from the Middle East because, I don't know. I mean, this is pre-9/11. Like,
it is.
I cannot imagine what Wit would think of modern TSA standards. Because if you thought, I mean, I'm sure they had some questions for him, but like, based on my understanding,
he lived there for a while.
Yeah.
2 years, possibly?
Yeah. But my understanding of what airports were like prior to 9/11 is just very unhinged and like disorderly.
As they're kind of talking, Jason's like, "Where's Eugene?" He's like, "Oh, he's over there talking to Katrina." And Wit's kind of like, "I'm surprised he's still over there talking to her." And Eugene's like, "What do you mean? They can talk for hours. They're probably talking about the soil content."
Yeah.
Which is a great joke because we keep doing the soil thing with Eugene, and I love it. He's a dirty man. It's also during this conversation that it's revealed that Eugene sent daily postcards because he wouldn't pay for the phone service, so he just like was calling her, or rather than calling her, was just mailing her postcards every day. Andrew, are you a postcard guy?
No. Mostly because I don't know anybody that's a postcard guy. Like, I feel like that is something that the internet kind of did away with a lot. Not to say that I don't value it, because I am very much a card person.
I know you are.
If I get a card, I gotta give a card. And it makes sense to...
This is true not just of cards, but of anything you give Andrew. He feels so much obligation.
Oh, yeah! I know that... Yeah.
That's why I no longer give him gifts.
I'm sorry.
It's okay. I'm glad we know our boundaries.
I feel like a burden otherwise.
Yeah.
But no, it is very interesting that the postcards have kind of gone away in the way that they have, just because of, Instagram and location tagging and all of that. But I think that the value that postcards still, like the value of having a tangible picture and writing of something, is still really cool and valuable, and I don't think that that's depreciated.
Yeah, I have a friend who sent me a postcard last year for my birthday, and so then I returned the favor for their birthday.
Love that.
So I'm like,
love
that, but that is, I think that was the first time I have sent a postcard.
Yeah.
But kind of fun. I don't know. I like, they're cool.
Yeah, they are.
Like, I'm like, I could start to be someone who buys.
Yeah.
Here's my thing. Not buying souvenir gift shop postcards, but going through postcards at thrift stores or other vintage shops to then send rules.
Yeah.
Like when I was out visiting my cousin in California, we were at this store and they had boxes of old postcards.
Very
and I went
cool.
through until I could pick one out that was cool.
Yeah.
And similarly, when I was down at the beach recently, I did the same thing.
Yeah.
Where it's I don't know, it feels better somehow than just buying the touristy postcard. It's hey, this postcard has a little bit of a thing.
Yeah, it's a little bit more of a gift and less of a means of communication.
Yeah.
Which
it makes it special in an interesting way. Not that you can't pick up a postcard from a cool place that would be special, because that for sure works. But just Anyway, Eugene was sending postcards, and the thing that I think is odd here is just the last interaction we haven't seen Eugene and Katrina interact or even really be mentioned in the same breath since Jason said goodbye to Katrina for Eugene at the airport.
Yeah. Oh, yes. Yeah, and then the vice versa happened with Tasha and such, yeah.
Right. And I guess that is the episodes we covered prior to Search for Wit, but it feels like so long ago, and there's nothing set up in the episodes in between to imply that they are keeping contact. And so I had to remind myself that they were friends again.
And like,
because
more than friends. I mean, they weren't committed,
correct.
But like, there was
but like,
feelings.
because the last like strong memory I had was that the distance was rough and that their relationship was kind of fizzling out. And I just forget that those two episodes end with kind of a recommitment because it doesn't happen between the two of them.
Yeah.
And so we jump from that to like Eugene frantically trying to find her on the phone because he didn't tell her ahead of time that he was going to be in Chicago. And so he's like frantically, right. He thought he would surprise her. How do you feel about surprise trips?
So I think that they can be fun, but not for me.
Yes.
I understand that, like, there are people that can just get away with flying by the seat of their pants, but I've got chronic illness, so, like, surprise trips typically end up with me really tired and having purple feet. So, it's just...
I have some friends whom I love dearly, who will do the just like, I'm not going to tell anyone, I'm just going to show up for the weekend.
Yeah.
Kind of thing.
Yeah.
And every single time it stresses me out.
No, 100%, because you end up taking more responsibility over the situation than is necessary.
Well, and I will already have made plans.
Yeah.
And I hate backing out of plans with like everything in me.
Oh, yeah, no.
So if I've already committed to it, it really sucks for me to have to be like, all right, so-and-so, we planned to do this for a month, but friends just showed up from out of town and they're more important to me than you. So I guess I'm doing something with them.
Yeah, I would never, I don't know that I would never, but I definitely would be less likely, like, I would feel more bad about keeping this person that showed up out of nowhere so that I could keep my existing plans. Like, that would be my version where I feel really bad because this person, I mean, one, they didn't necessarily respect my boundaries or my time by just showing up, but they clearly valued it because they wanted to be around me and I have other stuff to go to do.
Yeah. So Eugene's trying to pull this maneuver in Chicago, but he's not doing it great. And so by calling around, he eventually calls the number for the place that Katrina's roommate works.
Yeah.
As a way of like getting through, which is also funny just in the like, my memory or my assumption here is that he's got all these numbers memorized, and I think that's really funny.
Yeah.
Maybe he's like carrying a pocketbook or a Rolodex or something, but
a planner.
I like the idea better that Eugene's just knows Janice's number by heart.
Or I mean, not even that. He has like the college library for a college he doesn't go to or wherever. It's like a bookstore or something.
Yeah, he's just calling.
He just knows.
Calling all the numbers.
Yeah.
And so Janice reveals that Katrina went to a lodge for the weekend with Brandon. She seems to think that Katrina and Brandon are getting engaged, but is extremely vague here.
When she goes back, like, so Eugene freaks out, and then she says, like, all I know is they're going up there for an engagement as opposed to them being engaged.
Right, but that's also not true.
What do you mean? My quote wasn't accurate?
I guess. I'm saying like ultimately they're not up there, but I guess.
Yeah.
I guess if you take engagement to be just a thing we're doing.
Yeah, an engagement like they had an engagement. to be a part of, where she like uses it in two different ways back to back.
Yeah. It's really flimsy. But Eugene immediately jumps to conclusions here.
Oh, yeah.
And drops the payphone and then is yelling to Whit and Jason while Janice just kind of floats around in the background and like big shouts out to Mark Drury and Todd Bustede, who engineered these episodes, like fantastic. This one and the next one, because like it just kills. Like it's very well done.
The Foley is insane.
Yep.
I don't know how they managed. I mean, it must be basically just all practical effects and recording.
Yeah, I don't know. I never know. Do they truly dangle a phone and have someone talk, or is there just like layers of effects and like ways to place things that like works? I don't understand. Audio engineering is a mystery, says the guy who edits this podcast. If you ever wonder why the editing is bad and our sound quality is not great, it's because I am the engineer.
That's not true. It's because I'm poor and can't afford a nicer microphone.
I don't think our microphones are the issue.
You're right.
I think someone better could produce this show with the same equipment in a way that sounds so much better than what we put out.
If you're that person, please send us an email.
Yeah, and if you'll do it for free.
Yeah.
I won't let you, because I'd feel terrible.
Yeah, I would only do it if there's some way that I could reciprocate. So, you got a podcast you want me to edit? You want it to be guaranteed worse? I could do that. But, we could diversify. Like, we could make you a pie or something. You get a monthly pie subscription for editing my podcast.
And so Whit is here convinced there's a misunderstanding. Yeah. Meanwhile, Eugene is spiraling.
Yeah, he's having a full-on mental breakdown. And, kudos to Will Ryan for capturing the way that I feel so eloquently. And maybe I am the problem. Maybe the reason that I don't like this episode is because I see too much of myself and Eugene in a way that I don't feel comfortable with. But yeah, no, just the vocal inflection of, you can hear how unhinged he is. And that's like, combined with all the practical effects, it creates this really fun and funny environment that's outside of Wit's End, but still, in Odyssey to a certain extent, or I think Chicago.
Yeah.
But still like feels familiar.
Yeah.
So, I don't know.
Yeah, and so he finds out that this lodge that she's at, he refers to it as the Niagara Falls of Chicago.
Yeah.
Which is a good joke. And then manages to, I think Whit suggests, like, why don't you just call the receptionist there? And so he calls, and the receptionist says, like, there's a wedding party, and he's like, would you like to speak to the minister in charge? And I wrote in my notes, the minister in charge is 100% Brandon. And Eugene's like drops the phone again.
Yeah.
Meanwhile, this guy's on it in the background, and Whit's like, what are you gonna do? And Jason's like, no. If you love her, fight for her.
Go and now.
Yeah. Frantic Will Ryan is some of the best Will Ryan.
Oh yeah,
it's fantastic.
Spot on. It's like there's so much energy and emotion in the way that he is delivering his lines. Like, I don't know. It's incredible. It also makes me hate Townsend Coleman all the more because he plays off that beautifully, and just the whole like, let me just kick back and get some popcorn. It doesn't matter. Like, I don't care about this person. Let me just send him to self-sabotage his life.
I don't think that's the way I read this.
It feels hard to not read it that way, considering how close they are. And Jason's like, yeah, just go up there. No information. You crash that wedding.
Yeah, but also think about what Jason would do in this scenario.
Go up there and crash that wedding.
100%. Like, I don't think he is intentionally setting Eugene down a bad path. I think that Jason doesn't know how to handle these situations either. And I
that
think
brings a whole new perspective.
But right, like this is 100% the way Jason's gonna do it.
Oh yeah, 100%. It's a spy moment. He gets the epic. I drove here to stop this.
Right, he is such a like
gesture person.
Yes, I was gonna say he's so big in like acts of grandeur. Like that's like his thing.
Yeah,
like he would be outside the window with the boombox.
Yeah.
Like that is Jason. And I think it's interesting that like Jason is saying the things that are more appealing to Eugene in this moment.
Yeah,
but also Eugene has spent way more time with Jason over the past couple years than Whit. And so the fact that they're saying conflicting things and he goes with Jason kind of rings true to that, just like this is the person that he's relying on. And also the guy who got them back together.
Yeah. Well, and Jason is like a romantic figure in Odyssey in a way that Whit really isn't in any way. So like
Jason has experience with romance. We just got off him and Tasha.
Yeah.
And
she's a hottie, as we established. So clearly there's got to be some value or truth to what he's doing.
Right. And like the way that Eugene was able to work things out with Katrina the last time was because Jason like revved him up and was like, we're going to go in there and we're going to have these conversations. And then they like swapped places. But like that was, so like it rings true that Eugene like leans into Jason, not just because it's what he wants to hear, but because like it lines up with like, the character. Like I think it makes a lot of sense here, even if it is absolutely the wrong decision.
Immediately I knew that, like, as soon as Jason opened his mouth, I was scared for Eugene. I don't remember this episode.
It's a don't jump to conclusions episode.
Yeah.
Like we always do these.
Yeah.
It's a classic. In sitcoms and in Odyssey. The other note I have here is that just John Campbell's score is so good in this episode. He is like giving it the intensity of a Blackguard or Novacom, despite it like not being at all.
It's like it's very much like a kind of goofy, larger than life romantic comedy of an episode, but it has all of the drama and the tension from the music, like you said, that makes it feel so much more important than, it actually is quite important as it becomes, but as you're listening to it, it doesn't necessarily feel as significant as the music would be portraying.
Yeah. Oh man. And so, then
I have in my notes when talking about Eugene sounds like he's having a stroke when he's talking about Katrina and Brandon and conveying all of this. There's something about, like, when his voice gets thinner and thinner progressively and, like, you can hear him getting out of breath. It's just, chef's kiss.
Brilliant performance.
Damn it, Dylan, I like this episode now.
My master plan is coming together. We then jump to the lodge where Eugene is ringing the bell repeatedly, and we get my hero of this episode, Steve Bridges, coming in to just be like, the bell works, sir. The voice he's doing is very just like
Leonard Miltsner.
It's not even quite that. It just feels extremely like he's just doing like snooty, semi-European, but not really, like concierge guy.
Yeah.
In just a way that like
whitewashed Michelle.
Yeah.
There you go.
Hey, there you go. And he reveals that the Shanks wedding is occurring right now. And I'm like, Eugene, take a breath and realize that the wedding's typically not named for the bride.
Yeah.
But he doesn't take that breath and instead bursts in, interrupting the wedding. And this is too awkward to bear.
It's brutal. I would like to divert from the awkwardness to mention how good the sound design is.
Sure. Yeah, absolutely.
It sounds like they're in a courtyard.
Yeah, I love having Brandon do the ceremony because you can hear him saying the vows through the door, and then like Eugene, like that can ramp him up, but it's really him doing the repeat after me thing. It's like it's well constructed, and it is so uncomfortable.
Oh yeah, like we've talked about Shiva Baby a lot on this podcast. This is up there with that for me. Like, honestly, I think I felt more comfortable during Shiva Baby.
Oh, man. And so, we find out pretty quickly that it's Armitage and Millie renewing their vows here.
Yeah.
And
Brandon just got ordained as a minister, so he's doing the vows. Yeah.
Katrina pulls Eugene outside and gives him a very stern talking to. And I don't know what this says about me, but I love stern Katrina so much.
Oh, certainly. There is something to be said about
Pamela Hayden doing the very just firm, I am not happy with you voice. Just worked for me.
No, I do agree though, and I think that the whole
you agree that Stern Katrina's hot. Oh, okay, yeah. all right.
No, I mean, please, I would love to be in my place. If you want to put me there, then go for it.
Yeah, and so they, for a absolutely insane scene, they go into a lounge to have this argument.
Oh my gosh, they duck out into the hallway and then they step presumably down the hall into some kind of 70s style lounge situation.
Yep.
Where there's somebody musing in the corner to presumably two people.
Yeah, and Jim Adam, who was working for Focus at the time, wrote some songs and performed them here in the background as the lounge singer. And it is such a weird thing it doesn't feel particularly Odyssey-y.
No.
But I kind of love it.
No, it's weird as hell. It doesn't make any sense.
Nope. And interestingly, this is, I don't know if you noted how long this episode was, but this
long, yeah.
This whole scene in the lounge was cut for time for the broadcast.
Oh.
Which makes it a worse episode because this is where all the important stuff happens.
Yeah.
But, because it's the only time that Eugene and Katrina actually talk to each other.
And have a real heart-to-heart and catch up as to what's actually happening.
Yeah, and it's just it's such a good scene. So it was cut from the episode, and then they wanted to put it back in from the album. But the original version of this scene, the lounge singer was singing actual songs.
Oh, so they couldn't get the copyright or whatever?
Correct. And when they went to put it on the album, the note is, in the official guide from Mark Drury, is, we wanted to put the scene back in for the album, but discovered that we would have to pay royalties.
Yeah. No, they got copyright stricken.
I'm like, yeah, that's how this works. But apparently there were lines from the Morris Albert song Feelings and Paul McCartney's Silly Love Songs.
Oh, interesting.
Being used in the background.
Yeah.
And it was Steve Bridges who was performing them.
Really?
Yeah.
That's incredible.
Which, look, if there's anyone at Focus who can leak that,
please do.
Oh, my word.
I will.
Can you imagine having that audio?
I don't think it's a leak if you pay for it. Can I pay for it? Can I exchange goods and services?
I think that might be where it becomes an issue from the copyright angle. If you're paying for it.
Yeah.
But here's what I'm saying. Just I don't know, upload it to YouTube.
Who's gonna know?
You're fine.
Nobody's gonna know.
We're good. Post it on your TikTok.
Yeah.
Is there an Odyssey TikTok yet?
Not that I've found.
I don't think so. But or if both of those are opening up to too much liability, wadfamchalkpod@gmail.com. We will never even acknowledge it on the podcast if you don't want us to.
Yeah.
If you put in your email and say, hey,
don't say
this is a secret, but here you go, we will respect that. We might joke about having something as a secret that we can't talk about.
Yeah.
But we will never directly acknowledge it or you
betray your
on
trust.
the podcast.
Not
what I wouldn't pay for that audio.
Oh man, just to hear Rodney Rathbone and Michelle's Spirit Baby singing.
But I think it's really interesting that so all the lounge singer stuff we get in this scene was dubbed in afterwards.
That makes sense.
Right. It really was like the Rosetta Stone for me for understanding this scene. Because I'm like, right, the Odyssey joke would be Steve Bridges in the background doing a lounge singer impression and singing pop songs.
Yeah.
Like, that does make sense for Odyssey in a way that, like, what the thing that Jim Adam is doing here does not.
No.
But I'm so glad he did it.
It's it gives me I Think You Should Leave vibes, which is like, kind of absurdist comedy.
Yeah.
And okay. I can see it. You see, I don't understand it. I thought that I didn't like this episode. I think I just don't like myself.
Well, we already knew that was the case.
Yeah, that's fair, but now that I feel like talking to you about it has made all of the parts that were like kind of rough around the edges a lot more enjoyable.
Well, and we keep going in their like argument here where Katrina brings up the fact that she told Eugene about the vow renewal. That this should not have surprised him.
Yeah.
And they're having this whole like back and forth and eventually take it outside of the lounge, and in just, I don't know, some of the best the show is, there is a silence of them leaving the lounge where we don't have any dialogue and we just hear them exiting and then picking up the conversation again.
Yeah.
And it's so good. It gives like space to this argument. It means that like it so quickly communicates that like we are out of like the heat of the frustration of this moment, but that things are not resolved.
Yeah.
And it doesn't cut away to commercials or immediately continue the conversation. Like, it lets this moment of silence play out in a way that just like kind of took my breath away.
No, I think that's I think that arguably, the thing that Odyssey is the worst at is using dead space for its communication. And I feel like it's like using black and painting, where it's just really hard to do because if you do too much, it ruins the whole thing. But that makes a lot of sense, and I feel like it's very real because of the way that they're communicating, that like they've said so much that just for a second like they have nothing more to say, and so it's just this awkward transition, and then it, like you said, it shifts from the heat of the moment to what this moment says about the bigger picture.
Yeah.
And like the silence is a really nice way to transfer that shifting perspective.
For sure. And then this is where Katrina like just bluntly calls out Eugene for having a low view of her.
Yeah.
Where she's like, I don't understand. Like, because Eugene keeps insisting where he was just like, oh, like, I feel so bad. I got caught up in the moment. Like, things just spiraled. And Katrina's like, no. The heart of it is you think that I would just go off and marry someone without saying anything to you?
Yeah.
Like, the fact that you even thought that was a possibility speaks volumes about, like, where we are in our relationship.
Yeah, and the way that you think about each other, because it's indicative of the kind of choices that Eugene thinks that Katrina would make, and like
Yeah, and just like his greater insecurity. And like as someone who's insecure about a lot of like friendships and relationships, like I get it. But I love that I love the way it's handled. I love that Katrina is right.
And she brings it up, she puts it in its place, but she's not making it more dramatic than it needs to be, but she's calling attention. Like, she's the level-headed person in the situation. She's the wit coming in and being like...
And she articulates her feelings well.
Yeah.
And doesn't make them sterile or unemotional in any way. But
see, Paul, why couldn't you just do this for Connie?
Makes them clear. Or Tasha in the last couple episodes. Like... She is such a well fleshed out character in this scene, and I love it. We then jump to Eugene recounting this story to Wit in the most one-sided telephone call.
Oh yeah. And Eugene says, "Who's that in the background?" And you hear like little chuckles and stuff.
No, it's not even that. You don't hear the chuckles. You hear him say, I can hear Jason laughing in the background to Wit.
Yeah.
Like, it's not even, like, you never hear Wit or Jason in this scene. It is just Eugene. As a one-sided
telephone call
should be.
Yes, ought to be.
And Eugene is still, like, doesn't get it.
Yeah.
And is, like, convinced that Katrina was so harsh on him because, like, the reason that this all was so harsh was because of the strain of the long distance.
Yeah.
And then there's a knock at his door, and he opens it up, and it's Brandon.
Not Brandon!
Who... explains that he is there on Katrina's behalf, that there was a coin toss between him and Armitage as who had to come and talk to Eugene, and he lost.
I love it.
I do too. That coin toss is a very funny thing for me to imagine. Yeah. And he expresses on Katrina's behalf that, like, she thought that this was a relationship based on mature trust, but Eugene immediately expected the worst. And Katrina's like, well, you just go back to Odyssey. Like, I don't want to see you again. And Eugene's like, no, like, I have to. And then, like, throws down a gauntlet and tries to make it a war between him and Brandon.
Yeah.
And just another fantastic moment in the episode here where Brandon says, like, I want what's best for Katrina, and I'm prepared for the fact that it might not be me.
Yeah, which is brutal but real, and, like, that's what Eugene needs to be feeling at this moment.
Yeah, that is... It just immediately puts Brandon in a different class of maturity than where Eugene is. Not even spiritual, but just relational maturity.
No, his ability to interact and have stable relationships.
Yeah, which is like, is a sentiment that I can relate to as someone who has had a lot of friendships that have flirted with being something more and then not been something more, and then those people get into other relationships or whatever, and I have to grapple with is it more important for me to have them like, what does being a friend look like? Is it I need to be in a relationship with this person at all costs, or is it like I need to find a way to, like, care for them whether or not they are? And sometimes that means that I am no longer a part of their life, and sometimes it means I am just in a different capacity.
Yeah.
But, like, that's
something that you've had to do, though.
Yeah, and that's
hard.
Oh, yeah, it's not fun, but it is good.
See, every single girl I've liked has liked me back. No.
I mean, as established on the Rebecca Bulnez episode, I believe that's true. You've never had an unreciprocated crush, I believe is what you said in that episode. That you've unreciprocated a crush, but you've never...
Yeah. Yeah. I'm a terrible person.
But like, yeah, I don't know. But even like with a relationship that ends, trying to have it end in a way where it's like, I want what is best for this person, rather than just the I want what is best for me.
Yeah, or I want what I want.
Right.
You know, which is like, I feel like the default for people within a relationship is to be like, yeah, this relationship is only good as so far as it's giving me what I want.
Yeah.
And like, that's cool and fun and all, but like, there's so much more going on when it comes to building a really long-term partnership with somebody that like you have to weigh into consideration, like, how are you dealing with problems and how are you responding to failure, and like how are you when crisis happens, like how are you responding, what is your brain like, in a way that, you know, in this episode it makes it so starkly clear that Brandon and Katrina are on a whole different level than Eugene. And maybe it's because, you know, he's insecure in their relationship because of the physical distance, and he's just projecting all of that onto her, which it would make a lot of sense.
Yeah, I think that's very much what is being portrayed as happening here.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't know. It's, I think that it is... It's a very interesting thing for me, and I was just talking to my therapist about it, trying to balance the whole doing right by yourself in a relationship, holding your own, taking care of yourself, having boundaries, and then also being loving and supportive and willing to make compromise and doing all of those things, because they seem somewhat antithetical to each other, but not necessarily, and they don't have to be, and I think that that's where this conflict is coming from, I suppose.
Yeah. I think it's really easy to just prioritize yourself and your wants and desires, especially when you're in a situation like Eugene is here.
Yeah.
And I think it's so valuable to portray like that is not the most important thing. Mm-hmm. Like that it is... like the relationships have to be mutual in order for them to work at all. And for you to be like, well, I like clearly my feelings are the valid ones, or like, I want to be in a relationship with you, therefore it must occur, or it should occur, or that's what's supposed to happen. And to just be like, it takes two. You have to like be in a place. You have to like, in order for something like that in order for a relationship to work, so many pieces have to align in the lives of two people. Yeah. And Eugene, can't get past what he wants this to be. And Brandon seemingly can. Now, by the end of the episode, that becomes a little muddier. Yeah. But like, as he's talking here, he's very clearly communicating like this is a thing that he wants and desires and is prepared for it to not be him. Yeah. And that in doing that, he is showing care and love for Katrina, which I think is just so cool. Yeah. And I love here. And in just like the continued theme of like, of Odyssey being not written for kids in stuff like this, but able to be consumed and enjoyed by kids is so good. Where it's just like there is nothing that a child could relate to in this episode, but like it's still a story told well that they can follow and maybe something takes root.
Well, and they're two super familiar characters that, you know, they're in a slightly different setting and all of that. I think that this episode does a really good job of making it self-approachable while still dealing with a lot of the heavier topics that the Eugene and Katrina arc has kind of brought up. I think one of the things that Eugene and I struggle with is like recognizing and fully appreciating the autonomous nature of the other person in the relationship or in the situation, where it's like, yeah, there is no way that I can know what's best for you because only you get to know that, and maybe I have ideas on things that are more or less good for you, but as far as what is going to lead you to become the kind of person that you want to be or be in the relationship that you want to be in, Eugene is very much acting like he knows the answer for Katrina and for himself in a way that he might feel like he knows the answer for himself, but he doesn't really actually. And there's no way that he could know for Katrina, especially considering everything with Brandon. So, I don't know. I think for me, it's rooted in fear and the idea that if I feel a sense of lack of control, I'm going to do as much as possible to try and get that control back. And what that does is it crosses boundaries and steps on their autonomy to make choices for themselves and to, suffer the consequences of their actions, whether that be good or bad.
Sure.
Yeah. Anywho.
I don't think you typically suffer consequences that are good.
True. Experience consequences, whether they are suffering or joyous.
Oh, man. And yeah, right. Eugene starts to convince himself that this message isn't even from Katrina, that, Brandon's just coming here self-servingly. Yeah. Yep. And so he goes down and has another great exchange with the clerk.
Yep.
And during this, finds out that he can't get Katrina's room number. He could make a call to her, but she set her phone to do not disturb. And so
he wants her room number, but the clerk won't give it out.
Yep. And so he goes upstairs and hacks the hotel's computer system.
Love to see it. I want more hacker Eugene.
And yeah, he is just an absolute idiot. Finds out her room number, goes there, yells at the door for a while until eventually Armitage walks out and is like, get out of here. Katrina and I switched rooms, and her and Brandon already left to go back to the university. But while Eugene's spiraling and yelling and being dumb, one of the things he breaks out is this idea that he is going to use their common faith to weaponize forgiveness.
Oh, yeah, you have to forgive me because you are a Christian.
Because he's really struggling with she didn't even want to see me.
Yeah.
Like, she sent Brandon on my behalf. Like, I am acting totally rationally. Nothing has occurred here that should, drive her away. She's the one who's irrational. And I'm like, buddy, no.
Yeah.
And he's really going through it. In just a way that is brutal to watch.
Yeah.
Occur.
But real in the sense that I could imagine real people making those decisions and grasping at straws in that way. Because if that is your perspective on the situation, and honestly, unconditional love and grace is really hard to work into a relationship that still recognizes healthy boundaries, because the whole point of a boundary is that there are conditions.
Yeah.
And so to strike the balance of yes, I love you unconditionally, but my love can look like me doing something completely different than supporting you in what you're doing if that's not, or sacrificing myself if that's what supporting you would entail.
Yeah. And
he's not having a good day.
Then he goes downstairs and to check out, and when he gives the room number, the concierge is like, oh, you're the guy who hacked our system.
Yeah,
we've got tracers. You're gonna come talk to the security guy now.
Yeah.
Which is where Eugene's story ends for the episode. We'll see if it picks up next week. But meanwhile, we jump to Brandon and Katrina in the car.
Yes.
Katrina just kind of is done with things, wants to get back to her life. Brandon's kind of like, are you sure we should have run away from this? Are you sure you don't want to go talk to Eugene? He seems to care about their relationship and want like her to have closure, and he's like a little worried that she's siloing herself off unhealthily in this moment. But then as they're talking, she holds her ground pretty well, and then he plays the malest of male cards here, where he's like, and come on, like, aren't you like a little flattered that Eugene came in to fight? And she's like, no, absolutely not.
Yeah.
And
don't be ridiculous.
Thank you so much for voicing that.
I'm so flattered that this person came just to make an ass out of themselves in front of everybody for my sake.
Right.
Like, Thank you for unwillingly or unknowingly making me the victim of like a ton of secondhand embarrassment.
Right.
Like how is that endearing?
Yes. Yep. But too often, media rewards the grandstanding and rewards your grand gestures. It rewards your gotta fight for the girl. And this one's just like, no, I didn't like that. That was bad.
Yeah.
Like that sucked for all of us.
All bad.
He interrupted my parents' like vow renewal.
Yeah.
Like this was no good. And so, then he decides to just kind of hit her directly with something, and he's like, because they're kind of like beating around the bush about feelings and whatnot.
Yeah.
And you start to get the hint where it's like, oh, Brandon has never actually expressed his feelings to Katrina.
Oh, yeah.
It is so Bible college.
Oh, so Bible. I mean, honestly, I imagine that kind of sexual and romantic tension in the air as like a sort of spread, like a hummus or a cream cheese, because it is so thick and it's just sitting in between them the whole time.
Yeah, and it's interesting because like as Katrina's talking, she makes it clear once again, because we got this previously when like she visited Odyssey and Eugene lost his mind over Brandon. Then we get here again that like Katrina doesn't harbor those feelings towards Brandon. Like she is, and she doesn't think that he does in a way that I can't at all relate to. But like and then he keeps pushing her on it, and she eventually says just kind of like, well, if I went for my heart, this is like what I would be looking for, and does like a rundown of exactly who Eugene is, down to his quirkiness and everything, and she's just like, that's who I would want if I was going with my heart. And then Katrina, and then she says, but if I was going with my head,
I would pick somebody much more like Brandon.
Right. At which point Brandon goes, that's the exact door I've been looking for. I've been looking for her to express in any context that she would date me. Yeah. So here we go. I'm going to ask her out. No. Never mind. That's not strong enough. I'm going to propose.
Eternal matrimony.
And that's where the episode ends.
Yep.
I wrote down in my notes, oh, Brandon's going to ask Katrina out. And then he proposed, and I went, oh.
So that's how they get rid of Brandon.
What a bad leap, my guy. You were doing so well in this episode.
She left that door open a crack, and she just sumo threw himself through
This guy has just been like waiting in the wings for months for any indication that Katrina might have feelings. And then once she says she does, he's like, boom, proposal.
Yeah. Let me just tell you that I want to have 4 kids, and I think that you'd be a great mother.
Which... To be fair, there have been situations in my life where if that crack had been opened, I might have done something this stupid.
Oh, yeah, sure.
But...
That hasn't, and you didn't.
Yes, exactly.
So we can still judge. Or at least acknowledge the humor in the situation.
Yeah, it is so rough, and especially after Brandon has established so many good things for himself in this episode. And I'm just like, wow, okay, so Katrina shouldn't end up with either of them.
No, yeah, they both just took the bag and fumbled it.
Right.
Yeah, like Eugene seemed to not want it, so he just gave it to Brandon. And then Brandon got so excited, he just chucked it in the air.
Oh, man. But yeah, good episode.
It was something, I'll tell you what. It made me very uncomfortable in a lot of ways. And, I don't think that it's a bad episode. I think that I don't like it.
Yeah.
or that it doesn't... it doesn't give me the warm fuzzies that I love when Odyssey does. But
totally fair. I am so impressed with the
lounge scene is so strong, though. I cannot imagine this episode without it.
Yeah, and I am right. I think that from a production standpoint, from all the vocal performances, it works. I think it's well plotted. I like what they are doing with Katrina in this episode.
Yeah.
So much. Yeah. I like that they are making
I like what they're doing with Armitage in this episode. He's getting recommitted to his wife. He's flipping coins.
The conversation he has with Eugene outside the room, which we didn't really talk about, is like very cordial
and respectful.
Considering the circumstances, considering like they are not like the best of friends up till this point.
No.
But like he handles himself well and like gives Eugene more credit than he should.
Yeah.
Given the circumstances. And it's such a well built out episode. And I'm really like, I'm thrilled by it. Like the stuff that it is trying to do, it does well, and is not necessarily the stuff I would assume it would try to do.
Yeah, no, I do agree in the sense that, like, what you said about it not really feeling like an Odyssey episode, I don't know if it's just because there aren't any kids and it's in a weird location that's not really hyperbolized in any way. It's just like some generic hotel that it feels like a different kind of Odyssey. And I think in some ways that rubbed me the wrong way, but I think in the instances of the writing and the kind of character interactions and the development that gets to happen, at least in this part 1, I think it's very, very strong. And I'm excited for part 2.
Yeah, me too. Andrew, anything you want to plug? I don't have anything personally.
Yeah, I would love to, I don't know. Support groups are really important to me right now. I go to Al-Anon family group once a week, and I have a sponsor and everything, and that's been really tremendous for my ability to kind of take back control of my life. So I would just really I cannot recommend support groups enough. If you're going through something, whether that's you lost somebody that you love, or you are addicted to something, or whatever may be happening, for me at least, it was really helpful to get involved in a community, and they're there. Al-Anon is everywhere if you're related to or love somebody that struggles with alcoholism, and grief support groups, recovery support groups, like they are there if you're ready to take advantage of them. And it's just been something that's really blessed me. So
yeah. Thanks for sharing, buddy.
No problem. It's something.
And I have, in lieu of plugs, I have not one, but 2 5-star reviews to read out.
Oh my goodness.
So this review comes from City Rose, titled, "What I've Been Waiting For. I grew up listening to Odyssey daily as a kid, but I took a bit of a break through my teens and early 20s. 2 years ago, I subscribed to the club and listened to every episode up until album 50. As I went through the episodes, I was continuously wishing I could talk to anyone about all of my new thoughts and opinions of the show now that I have some distance from my childhood. I adore this podcast, and I love that even when I disagree with both of you, I know we'll all have so much fun."
Oh, that's great.
Yeah.
That's such a great way to end it, and I feel like that really echoes what I think is valuable about this.
Yeah, I mean, look, that's why I want to do this. And then the other review comes from Bad Wolf 101, who wrote, "Love this podcast. I started deconstructing in 2020, as everyone did, and Adventures in Odyssey has been involved in my journey. I've already listened to podcasts looking at episodes like The Mortal Coil, but this podcast has really helped me think about things while laughing with you guys. Keep up the good work."
Aw.
All right, and with all that being said, we will be back next week to talk about episode 363, The Right Choice, part 2.
Bye.
Bye, guys.